The air in the Silver Dollar Saloon hummed with anticipation as Melody Kincaid stepped through the swinging doors, her heart thundering beneath her corset like a stampede across the prairie. The year was 1875, and Silverspring, Colorado, was alive with the promise of new beginnings. Melody smoothed her emerald green dress, a garment she'd spent 3 months' savings on from her modest teacher's salary. At 22, she was determined to make an impression at the spring social, the first proper dance she'd attended since arriving in town 6 months prior. Back east in Boston, her parents had insisted she'd find a suitable husband with her education and refined manners, but the untamed West had different ideas about what made a woman desirable. "Miss Kincaid," Mrs. Patterson, the mayor's wife, waved her over. "We thought you might not come, and miss the most anticipated event of the season." Melody smiled, though her stomach knotted with nerves. "I wouldn't dream of it." The saloon had been transformed. Gone were the usual card tables and whiskey-soaked men. Instead, lanterns cast a golden glow over a polished dance floor, while wildflowers arranged in mason jars adorned every surface. A small band of musicians tuned their instruments in the corner, the fiddle player drawing experimental notes that seemed to dance on the air. Melody accepted a cup of punch from Mrs. Patterson and scanned the room, noting the familiar faces of her students' parents, the shopkeepers who nodded politely when she passed their establishments, and several ranch hands she'd never properly met. That's when she first noticed him. He stood against the far wall, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a black vest over a crisp white shirt, cleaner than most cowboys managed. His dark hat was tipped back, revealing sun-bronzed features and eyes that seemed to catch the lamplight even from across the room. When those eyes met hers, Melody quickly looked away, a flush rising to her cheeks. "That's Gabriel Blackburn," Mrs. Patterson whispered, following Melody's gaze. "Owns the Double Arrow Ranch about 10 miles west. Keeps to himself mostly, but he's fair in his dealings. Surprised to see him here, doesn't usually come to town functions." "I see," Melody murmured, pretending indifference while stealing another glance. This time, Gabriel Blackburn nodded slightly in acknowledgement, a gesture so subtle she might have imagined it. The band struck up a lively tune, and couples began to fill the dance floor. Melody stood watching, tapping her foot to the rhythm. After 2 songs, the town banker, Mr. Wilson, asked her to dance. She accepted gratefully, if only to quell the whispers about the spinster schoolteacher that had already begun to circulate despite her youth. 3 dances later, her cheeks flushed from exertion and laughter, Melody excused herself to get another cup of punch. The evening air had grown warm with so many bodies in motion, and she fanned herself as she approached the refreshment table. "Miss Kincaid, isn't it?" The deep voice behind her nearly made her spill her drink. She turned to find Gabriel Blackburn standing closer than she expected, his presence commanding even in the crowded room. "Yes, Mr. Blackburn." She was proud of how steady her voice sounded. "I'm surprised you know who I am." A faint smile crossed his face. "Hard not to know the woman who's got half the town's children reciting Shakespeare. My foreman's boy can't stop talking about you." "Tommy is one of my brightest students," she replied, pleased by the indirect compliment. "Would you care to dance, Miss Kincaid?" He extended his hand, and she noticed the contrast calloused from work, yet clean, with unexpectedly elegant fingers. The band had just begun a waltz, and Melody hesitated only briefly before placing her hand in his. "I would, thank you." Gabriel led her to the floor with a confidence that spoke of a man comfortable in his own skin. His hand at the small of her back was firm but respectful, maintaining a proper distance between them. As they began to move, Melody was surprised by his grace. "You dance well for a rancher, Mr. Blackburn. And you seem surprised, Miss Kincaid." His eyes, she could now see, they were a deep blue, held amusement. "Did you expect me to tromp on your toes?" "Perhaps," she admitted with a small smile, "though I'm learning not to make assumptions about people out here." "A wise lesson?" He guided her through a turn. "My mother insisted all her sons learn to dance properly. Said a man should know how to be a gentleman, even if he spends most days in the saddle." They continued in comfortable silence, the music filling the space between them. Melody found herself relaxing into the dance, aware of the curious glances they were attracting, but finding she didn't mind. There was something solid and reassuring about Gabriel Blackburn, a steadiness that contrasted with the wildness of the frontier around them. As the waltz intensified, they moved faster across the floor. The room began to spin, not just from the dance but from the warmth, the closeness, the unexpected connection she felt to this man she barely knew. Suddenly the lights seemed too bright, the music too loud, and Melody felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. I feel, she began, but her knees buckled beneath her. In an instant, Gabriel's arm tightened around her waist, preventing her fall. He swept her smoothly toward the edge of the dance floor, supporting her weight as if she were no heavier than a child. "Easy now," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear as he bent his head close to hers. "You're mine to hold. I won't let you fall." The words, spoken so intimately, sent a shiver through Melody that had nothing to do with her dizzy spell. She found herself clutching his arm, grateful for his strength, yet mortified at her weakness. "I'm so sorry," she whispered as he helped her to a chair. "I don't know what came over me." "No need for apologies." Gabriel knelt beside her, offering his handkerchief. "It's warm in here, and you've been dancing for some time." Mrs. Patterson bustled over with a glass of water. "My goodness, Miss Kincaid, are you unwell?" "Just a moment of lightheadedness," Melody assured her, accepting the water gratefully. "I'll be fine in a moment." "Perhaps some fresh air would help," Gabriel suggested, his eyes never leaving Melody's face. The concern there seemed genuine, making her heart flutter in a way that had nothing to do with her dizziness. "An excellent idea," Mrs. Patterson agreed. "Mr. Blackburn, would you be so kind as to escort Miss Kincaid to the porch?" "I'll check on her shortly." Gabriel offered his arm, and Melody took it, still feeling somewhat unsteady. They made their way through the crowd, several people inquiring after her health as they passed. Outside, the night air was cool and refreshing after the stuffiness of the saloon. "Better?" Gabriel asked as she took a deep breath. "Much, thank you." Melody released his arm, conscious of propriety despite the circumstances. "You must think me terribly delicate." "Not at all." He leaned against the porch railing, studying her. "Even the strongest among us have moments of weakness. It's how we recover that matters." Something in his words touched her. "That's a generous perspective, Mr. Blackburn." "Gabriel," he corrected. "If I'm to be your rescuer, I think we can dispense with formalities." "Then you must call me Melody." She smiled, feeling oddly at ease with this man, who was still essentially a stranger. "Though I hope you won't make a habit of needing to rescue me." "I don't know," he said thoughtfully, a hint of playfulness in his tone. "I rather enjoyed being your hero, if only for a moment." Melody laughed, the sound carrying into the night. "Well, Sir Knight, I'm grateful for your gallantry. But I should warn you I came west to prove I could stand on my own 2 feet. And yet, here you are, swooning at dances." His eyes twinkled. "I did not swoon," she protested, though her indignation was feigned. "I merely experienced a temporary loss of equilibrium." "Is that what they teach you to call it in those fancy Eastern schools?" Gabriel chuckled, a rich sound that warmed her more than it should have. They fell into easy conversation, discovering common ground despite their different backgrounds. Gabriel had been born in Missouri, but had come to Colorado as a young man, working his way up from ranch hand to owner. He spoke of his land with passion, describing the rolling hills and clear streams that reminded Melody of the romantic novels she'd devoured as a girl. "And what brought you all the way from Boston to our dusty little town?" he asked eventually. Melody hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I wanted adventure, I suppose, and independence. Teaching seemed the most respectable way for a woman to achieve both." "And has it been everything you hoped for?" "Not exactly," she admitted. "It's harder than I imagined. The children are wonderful, but sometimes the loneliness—" She trailed off, embarrassed by her candor. Gabriel's expression softened. "The West can be a harsh place for those who come seeking romance and excitement. Reality rarely matches our dreams." "Are you always this philosophical, or is it just the moonlight?" Melody teased, deflecting from the vulnerability she'd inadvertently revealed. "Must be the company," he replied, his gaze so intense she had to look away. The door opened behind them, and Mrs. Patterson emerged. "Feeling better, dear? People are asking after you." "Much better, thank you." Melody straightened, smoothing her skirts. I should return to the dance. I'll escort you back, Gabriel offered, extending his arm once more. Inside, the festivities continued unabated. Melody was immediately claimed for another dance by the town doctor, then the blacksmith, while Gabriel was pulled into conversation with several ranchers. They exchanged glances across the room throughout the evening, each look carrying the weight of their shared moment on the porch. As the night drew to a close, Gabriel appeared at her side once more. "May I see you home, Miss Kincaid?" he asked formally, mindful of the ears around them. "That would be lovely, Mr. Blackburn." She matched his tone, though her heart raced at the prospect of extending their time together. They walked slowly through the quiet streets, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The town was peaceful under the canopy of stars, so different from the crowded, gaslit avenues of Boston. "I meant what I said earlier," Gabriel spoke suddenly. "When you were dizzy, I won't let you fall." Melody's breath caught. "That's a bold promise from someone I've just met." "Perhaps." He stopped, turning to face her. In the silver moonlight, his features were shadowed, but his eyes remained clear. "But I'm not a man who speaks without meaning." "And what exactly did you mean by, 'you're mine to hold'?" she asked, summoning her courage. Gabriel's smile was slow and deliberate. "I meant that in that moment, your safety was my responsibility. Nothing more presumptuous than that." "I see." She couldn't decide if she was disappointed or relieved by his explanation. "For now," he added, his voice dropping lower. "Miss Kincaid, Melody, I'd like to call on you properly, if you'll allow it." They had reached her small house at the edge of town, the schoolhouse visible just beyond. Melody looked up at him. This man who'd caught her when she fell, and then caught her interest just as thoroughly. "I would like that very much," she replied softly. Gabriel took her hand and pressed his lips gently to her knuckles. "Until then," he murmured against her skin, then released her and stepped back. Melody watched him walk away, a tall silhouette against the star-strewn sky, before entering her house. She leaned against the closed door, her heart full of an emotion she wasn't ready to name. Outside, the vast western night stretched endlessly, full of possibilities she'd never dared to imagine. 3 days passed before Gabriel made good on his promise to call. Melody had just dismissed her students for the day when she spotted him approaching the schoolhouse, riding a magnificent chestnut stallion. She busied herself with gathering papers, pretending she hadn't been watching the road each afternoon. "Miss Kincaid." He removed his hat as he entered, revealing hair as dark as midnight. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all, Mr. Blackburn." She gestured to the empty classroom. "As you can see, my charges have departed for the day." "Thankfully." He smiled, setting his hat on a desk. "I'd hate to have an audience for this." "For what?" Melody asked, her pulse quickening. From behind his back, Gabriel produced a small bouquet of wildflowers, purple lupines, and golden sunflowers tied with a simple twine ribbon. "These reminded me of you, bright and stubborn enough to bloom even in the harshest conditions." Melody accepted them, touched by the gesture. "They're beautiful, thank you." "I was hoping you might join me for a ride on Sunday afternoon," he said. "There's a place I'd like to show you, not far from town." "I'd love that." She inhaled the sweet scent of the flowers. "Though I should warn you, I'm not much of a horsewoman." "Don't worry." His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "I've got a gentle mare who'll take good care of you." They arranged the details of their outing, and Gabriel departed with a tip of his hat and a lingering look that kept Melody warm well into the evening. Sunday couldn't come fast enough. When it finally arrived, Melody dressed in her most practical skirt and a simple blouse, her anticipation mounting as she pinned her hair securely beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Gabriel arrived precisely at noon, leading a docile Palomino mare alongside his chestnut stallion. "This is Buttercup," he introduced as he helped Melody mount. "She's got the sweetest temperament of any horse I've ever known." "Hello, Buttercup." Melody patted the mare's neck, grateful for the animal's calm demeanor. "I promise to be a considerate rider." Gabriel showed her how to hold the reins properly, his hands gentle as they adjusted her grip. "Just relax and let her follow my horse. Dancer knows the way." They set out at an easy pace, leaving the town behind. Gabriel pointed out landmarks and shared stories of the area's history as they rode. The landscape opened up around them, rolling hills covered in spring wildflowers. Stands of aspen trees with leaves that fluttered like green coins in the breeze, and in the distance, the purple majesty of the Rocky Mountains. "It's breathtaking," Melody said, her eyes wide with wonder. "I've never seen anything like it." "This is what I love about ranching," Gabriel replied, pride evident in his voice. "Being part of this land, watching it change with the seasons. There's a freedom here you can't find elsewhere." After an hour's ride, they reached a small plateau overlooking a verdant valley. A clear stream wound through the meadow below, catching the sunlight like scattered diamonds. "This is it." Gabriel dismounted and helped Melody down, his hands spanning her waist. "My favorite spot on the whole ranch." Melody's breath caught at the view. "I can see why. It's like something from a painting." Gabriel spread a blanket on the grass and unpacked a picnic lunch from his saddlebags: cold chicken, fresh bread, cheese, and a jar of preserved peaches. They ate amid comfortable conversation, sharing stories of their childhoods and dreams. "I never planned to be a rancher," Gabriel admitted as they finished the meal. "My father was a lawyer. He wanted me to follow in his footsteps." "What changed your mind?" Melody asked, genuinely curious. Gabriel leaned back on his elbows, his face turned toward the sun. "I came west with a friend after college. Took a job as a ranch hand for a summer, just for the adventure of it. By August, I knew I'd found my calling, the connection to the land, the animals, the rhythm of the seasons. It spoke to something in me I hadn't known was there. That's how I feel about teaching," Melody said softly. "The first time I saw a child's face light up with understanding, because of something I'd taught them, I knew I'd found my purpose." "We're not so different then." Gabriel's eyes met hers, both following a calling rather than convention. As the afternoon waned, they walked along the stream, gathering wildflowers and skipping stones across the water's surface. Gabriel taught Melody how to whittle a simple whistle from a willow branch, his hands guiding hers with patient instruction. "My father would be scandalized," she laughed as she successfully blew a shrill note. "He always said a lady should never dirty her hands with such pursuits." "And what do you say?" Gabriel asked, watching her with amusement. Melody grinned, tucking the whistle into her pocket. "I say your father never knew the satisfaction of making something with her own two hands." The sun was beginning its descent when they reluctantly packed up to return to town. As Gabriel helped Melody onto Buttercup, his hands lingered at her waist a moment longer than necessary. "I've enjoyed today more than I can say," he told her, his voice low and sincere. "As have I," she replied, her heart full. "Thank you for sharing this place with me." The ride back to town was quieter, a comfortable silence settling between them as they absorbed the day's experiences. When they reached Melody's small house, Gabriel helped her dismount, his strong hands ensuring she landed safely. "May I call on you again?" he asked, still holding her hands in his. "I would be disappointed if you didn't," Melody answered honestly. Gabriel's smile was slow and warm. "Good, because I find myself thinking of you far more than is probably wise." "Wisdom seems overrated at the moment," she murmured, emboldened by the intensity in his gaze. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to step away if she wished. When she didn't move, he placed a gentle kiss on her cheek, his lips warm against her skin. "Until next time, Melody Kincaid," he whispered before mounting his horse and riding away, leaving her breathless on her doorstep. In the weeks that followed, Gabriel became a regular fixture in Melody's life. He escorted her to church on Sundays, joined her for walks after school, and sometimes simply appeared with fresh flowers or a book he thought she might enjoy. The townsfolk quickly noted their growing attachment, and Melody became accustomed to knowing smiles and whispered comments whenever they were seen together. One evening in late May, as they strolled along the river that ran behind the town, Gabriel took her hand in his. "There's a town social next Saturday," he said, "to celebrate the completion of the new bridge. Would you accompany me?" "Of course," Melody replied, enjoying the feel of his calloused palm against hers. "Though I hope you're prepared for another rescue should I grow dizzy again." Gabriel's laugh rumbled deep in his chest. "I'm always ready to catch you, Miss Kincaid, though I hope you won't make a habit of swooning." "Perhaps I just wanted to be in your arms," she teased, then blushed at her own boldness. Gabriel stopped walking, turning to face her. His expression grew serious as he reached up to tuck a stray curl behind her ear. "Is that so?" Melody's heart thundered in her chest. "Perhaps," she whispered. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to retreat. Instead, she raised her face to his, and when their lips finally met, it was with a tenderness that made her knees weak. His hand cradled her cheek as he deepened the kiss, and Melody found herself clinging to his shoulders, lost in the sensation of being truly desired. When they finally parted, both breathing quickly, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I caught you at the dance," he confessed. "I'm glad you waited," she replied. It made it all the more special. He kissed her once more, briefly but with feeling, before offering his arm to continue their walk. "We should head back before we give the gossips more to talk about than they already have." The town social proved to be even more festive than the spring dance. Lanterns were strung across the new bridge, casting golden reflections on the water below. Tables laden with food lined one side of the street, while the other had been cleared for dancing. Gabriel hardly left Melody's side all evening, his hand a reassuring presence at the small of her back as they moved through the crowd. "You look beautiful tonight," he murmured as they twirled to a lively tune. Her blue dress brought out the color of her eyes, and she'd pinned her hair up with silver combs that caught the lantern light. "You're not so bad yourself," she replied, admiring how his clean-shaven jaw and pressed shirt transformed the rugged rancher into a gentleman any Boston socialite would approve of. As the night wore on, Melody noticed Gabriel growing increasingly distracted, his eyes scanning the crowd as if looking for someone. When the band announced the last dance, he pulled her aside. "Walk with me?" he asked, nodding toward the bridge. They strolled to the middle of the structure, where Gabriel stopped and gazed out over the water. The night was perfect stars scattered like diamonds across the velvet sky, the air fragrant with spring blossoms, and music floating on the breeze. "Is everything all right?" Melody asked, concerned by his sudden solemnity. Gabriel turned to her, taking both her hands in his. "Melody, these past weeks have been the happiest of my life." "Mine too," she admitted, her pulse quickening at the intensity in his eyes. "I know it hasn't been long," he continued, "and perhaps this is too forward, but I've never been a man to hesitate when I know what I want." He took a deep breath. "And what I want, more than anything, is to build a life with you." Melody's breath caught as Gabriel dropped to one knee, still holding her hands. "Melody Kincaid, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? I promise to catch you whenever you fall, to stand beside you through whatever life brings, and to love you with everything I am for as long as I live." Tears filled Melody's eyes as joy expanded in her chest. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Gabriel, I will marry you." He rose and swept her into his arms, spinning her around as laughter burst from both of them. When he set her down, he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "It was my grandmother's," he explained as he slipped a delicate gold ring with a single pearl onto her finger. "Simple, but true like the promise I'm making to you." "It's perfect," Melody breathed, admiring how it caught the lantern light. "I'll treasure it always." Their kiss sealed the promise, witnessed only by the stars above and the flowing river below. As they walked back to join the celebration, hands intertwined and hearts full, Melody marveled at how a moment of weakness, a simple dizzy spell, had led to finding the greatest strength she'd ever known in the arms of a man who'd promised to never let her fall. News of their engagement spread through Silverspring like wildfire. Most responses were enthusiastic. Mrs. Patterson immediately began planning a reception, while Melody's students peppered her with questions about whether she would still be their teacher once she was Mrs. Blackburn. A few voices expressed concern over the brevity of their courtship, but Gabriel and Melody paid them little mind, secure in the certainty of their feelings. The wedding was set for August, giving them time to prepare, while still allowing them to be settled before winter. Melody wrote to her parents in Boston, half expecting them to object to her marrying a rancher she'd known for such a short time. Their response, when it came, was cautiously supportive. They would be unable to attend due to her father's health, but sent their blessing along with her grandmother's lace veil. As summer bloomed across the Colorado landscape, Melody split her time between teaching, preparing for the wedding, and learning about ranch life. Gabriel brought her to the Double Arrow regularly, showing her the sprawling main house built of solid timber, the bunkhouse where his ranch hands lived, the barn with its distinctive arrow-shaped weather vane, and the endless pastures where his cattle grazed. "It needs a woman's touch," he admitted as they toured the house one Saturday afternoon. "I've kept it functional, but it needs curtains," Melody declared, already envisioning how she would transform the masculine space into a home, and flowers, and perhaps some colorful throws for these chairs. Gabriel watched her with amusement as she moved through the rooms, planning improvements. "You can change whatever you like," he told her. "This will be your home, too." The master bedroom was large and airy, with windows overlooking the valley. A massive 4-poster bed dominated the space, covered with a simple quilt. "My mother made that before she died," Gabriel explained when he saw Melody examining it. "Said every man needed something to remind him of home." Melody touched the careful stitches with reverence. "It's beautiful. We'll keep it always." As they were leaving the house, a rider approached at speed. Gabriel tensed, stepping slightly in front of Melody as the man reined his horse to a stop. "Mr. Blackburn." The ranch hand was breathless, his face streaked with dust. "There's trouble at the north pasture. Rustlers hit during the night took about 40 head and shot Jim when he tried to stop them." Gabriel's expression hardened. "How bad is Jim hurt?" "Doc's with him now. Bullet went clean through his shoulder. Thank God for small mercies." Gabriel turned to Melody, his face apologetic. "I need to go." "Of course," she squeezed his hand. "Do what you need to do." He instructed another hand to take Melody back to town, kissed her briefly, and was gone, riding hard with 3 men toward the north pasture. Melody watched him disappear, a new worry settling in her chest, one she realized would be a constant companion as a rancher's wife. 3 days passed with no word from Gabriel. Melody tried to focus on her teaching, but her thoughts constantly strayed to the Double Arrow and the dangers Gabriel might be facing. On the 4th day, just as school was ending, she looked up to see him standing in the doorway, hat in hand. Her students' eyes widened at the sight of their teacher running into the arms of the tall rancher, propriety forgotten in her relief. Gabriel held her tightly for a moment before remembering their audience. "Children," he said, his voice gruff with emotion, "would you mind giving Miss Kincaid and me a moment alone?" The students filed out, giggling and whispering as Melody searched Gabriel's face. He looked exhausted, with several days' growth of beard and dark circles under his eyes. "We got them," he said before she could ask. "Followed their trail for 2 days, caught up with them near the territorial border. The sheriff has them now, and we recovered most of the cattle." "And Jim?" she asked, her hands still clutching his arms as if afraid he might disappear. "He'll live. Won't be doing any roping for a while, but Doc says he should recover fully." "And you?" Melody touched his face gently. "Are you hurt?" Gabriel shook his head. "Just tired. And missing you something fierce." They embraced again, Melody breathing in his scent, leather, horses, and the sage that grew wild across the range. "I was so worried," she confessed against his chest. "This is the reality of ranch life," he said softly, stroking her hair. "There will be times when danger comes, when I'll have to ride out and face it." Melody looked up at him, her expression resolute. "Then I'll be waiting for you to come home, no matter how long it takes." The pride and love that filled his eyes at her words was worth every anxious moment she'd endured. Gabriel lowered his head and kissed her with a passion that spoke of his own fears and relief at their reunion. "I love you, Melody Kincaid," he whispered when they parted, "more than I thought possible." "And I love you, Gabriel Blackburn," she replied, "through whatever comes." As their wedding day approached, preparations intensified. The entire town seemed involved, women sewing decorations, men constructing tables and benches for the feast, children practicing songs to perform. Gabriel's ranch hands built a dance floor near the church, while Mrs. Patterson coordinated the food preparations with military precision. The night before the wedding, Gabriel's brother Matthew arrived from Denver with his wife and children. The resemblance between the brothers was striking, though Matthew was leaner and wore the polished look of a successful businessman. "So, you're the schoolteacher who's tamed my wild brother," Matthew greeted Melody at the welcome dinner, his eyes twinkling with the same humor Gabriel often displayed. "I was beginning to think he'd die a bachelor, married only to that ranch of his." "I wouldn't say tamed," Melody replied, smiling as Gabriel approached with drinks. "Perhaps just convinced him to expand his territory." "She's got your number, Gabe," Matthew laughed, clapping his brother on the shoulder. "I like her already." The dinner was filled with stories of the Blackburn brothers' youth tales that had Melody alternately laughing and gasping at their recklessness. By the end of the evening, she felt embraced by this new family, accepted without reservation or judgment. When it was time to part for the night, Melody staying in town while Gabriel returned to the ranch, he held her close, reluctant to let go. "Tomorrow," he murmured against her hair. "Tomorrow, you'll be my wife." "Tomorrow," she echoed, her heart so full it felt it might burst. "I'll be the one in white." The August morning dawned clear and bright, as if nature itself approved of their union. Melody stood in Mrs. Patterson's guest room, trembling slightly as her friend Emma helped her into her wedding gown, a creation of ivory satin and lace that had required 3 fittings with the town's seamstress. "You look like an angel," Emma declared, adjusting the veil that had traveled all the way from Boston. "Gabriel won't know what hit him." Melody smoothed the satin bodice, hoping her parents could somehow sense her happiness from across the miles. "I never thought I'd find love here," she admitted. "I came west for independence, not marriage." "The best things in life are often those we don't plan for," Emma replied wisely, securing the last pearl button. "Now, let's not keep that handsome rancher waiting." The church was filled to capacity. It seemed every resident of Silverspring had turned out to witness the union of their schoolteacher and the owner of the Double Arrow. Wildflowers adorned every surface, their sweet fragrance filling the air as Melody walked down the aisle on the arm of Mayor Patterson, who had offered to stand in for her absent father. Gabriel waited at the altar, looking more handsome than she'd ever seen him, in a new black suit, his dark hair slicked back, his face freshly shaven. The moment their eyes met, everything else faded away: the murmuring crowd, the nervous flutter in her stomach, the slight pinch of her new shoes. There was only Gabriel, his blue eyes shining with a love so profound it took her breath away. The ceremony was simple but meaningful, their vows spoken clearly for all to hear. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Gabriel's kiss was reverent, a promise sealed before God and their community. Cheers erupted as they turned to face the congregation, hands clasped tightly together as they took their first steps as a married couple. The celebration that followed lasted well into the night. They danced beneath the stars, shared cake with their neighbors, and accepted countless well-wishes from friends old and new. When Gabriel finally swept her into his arms to carry her to the waiting carriage that would take them to the ranch, their home Melody felt as though she were floating on air. "Happy Mrs. Blackburn?" he asked as they rode through the moonlit landscape. "Deliriously so, Mr. Ensworth Blackburn," she replied, nestling against his shoulder. Their arrival at the Double Arrow was met with a surprise. The ranch hands had illuminated the path to the house with lanterns and scattered flower petals across the porch. Inside, fresh flowers adorned every room, and a fire had been lit in the bedroom hearth despite the summer warmth. "Welcome home," Gabriel whispered as he carried her across the threshold. Their first night as husband and wife was a revelation, tender moments interspersed with passionate discoveries as they learned each other's bodies with wonder and joy. Afterward, as Melody lay in the circle of Gabriel's arms, watching the moonlight play across the ceiling, she felt a sense of rightness, of having found the place she truly belonged. "What are you thinking?" Gabriel asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "I'm thinking about that first dance," she replied. "How dizzy I felt, and how you caught me." "Best thing I ever did," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple, though I had no idea where it would lead. "When you whispered you're mine to hold, did you mean it, even then?" Gabriel propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her with serious eyes. "I think some part of me knew, the moment I held you, that you were meant to be in my arms, that I would spend my life making sure you never fell." Melody reached up to touch his face, marveling at the journey that had brought them to this moment. "I'm glad I swooned then." "So am I, my love." His smile was tender as he lowered his lips to hers once more. So am I. The first year of marriage brought challenges and joys in equal measure. Melody continued teaching while learning to manage a household far larger than her modest Boston upbringing had prepared her for. She rose before dawn to prepare Gabriel's breakfast, spent her days with her students, then returned to oversee dinner for her husband and often several ranch hands. Weekends were filled with household tasks, bookkeeping for the ranch, and occasional social obligations in town. Gabriel worked from sunup to sundown most days, managing his land and livestock with the same dedication he brought to their marriage. He never failed to acknowledge Melody's contributions, treating her as a true partner rather than merely a wife. They made decisions together, from purchasing new breeding stock to hiring additional hands when the workload increased. Winter brought its own trials. A blizzard in January left them snowbound for nearly a week, and an outbreak of fever among the cattle required round-the-clock vigilance. Through it all, their bond strengthened, tempered like steel and fire. Spring arrived with renewal and a special announcement. Melody waited until Gabriel returned from a long day of branding calves, preparing his favorite meal and wearing the blue dress he particularly admired. "What's the occasion?" he asked as he entered the dining room, freshly washed and smelling of soap rather than cattle. "Do I need an occasion to spoil my husband?" she replied innocently, pouring him a glass of wine. Gabriel studied her face, his expression suspicious. "You're hiding something, Mrs. Blackburn. I can see it in your eyes." Melody bit her lip, unable to contain her news any longer. "I visited Doc Wilson today." Concern immediately replaced suspicion. "Are you ill?" "Not at all." She took his hand, placing it gently on her still flat stomach. "Quite the opposite, in fact. We're going to have a baby." Gabriel's expression transformed shock, joy, and wonder chasing across his features before he pulled her into his arms, laughing as he spun her around the room. "A baby! When?" "Late October, the doctor thinks." Melody laughed at his enthusiasm. "Put me down before you make me dizzy again." He set her gently on her feet, but kept his arms around her. "I promise to always catch you," he reminded her, his voice thick with emotion. "Both of you." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer months, though Melody found the heat more taxing than she'd anticipated. Gabriel insisted she reduce her teaching hours, hiring a young woman from Denver to assist with the older students while Melody focused on the younger children. By September, her condition was impossible to hide, her rounded belly a source of pride for Gabriel, who couldn't seem to keep his hands from resting protectively over their growing child. The townsfolk treated her with even greater solicitude than usual, offering advice, hand-me-down baby clothes, and endless remedies for her occasional discomfort. "You'll have the baby at the ranch?" Mrs. Patterson asked during one of her visits, concern evident in her voice. "It's quite far from town if there's trouble." "Doc Wilson has arranged to stay with us for the week around my due date," Melody explained, "and Gabriel's sister-in-law Elizabeth will be coming from Denver to help." "Still, childbirth is unpredictable," the older woman cautioned. "Perhaps you should consider staying in town as your time approaches." Melody shook her head, one hand resting on her belly, where the baby kicked vigorously. "This child is half Blackburn stubborn and determined to be born on ranch land, I suspect." Mrs. Patterson laughed, patting Melody's hand. "Well, with parents like you two, this child is certainly coming into the world surrounded by love." October arrived with crisp mornings and golden afternoons. The ranch was busy with preparations for winter storing hay, repairing fences and outbuildings, and culling the herd before the snow came. Melody had fully embraced her role as the mistress of the Double Arrow, her days filled with preserving the garden's last harvest, knitting tiny garments for the baby, and ensuring the house was ready for the coming cold. Gabriel had converted a small room adjacent to their bedroom into a nursery, building a cradle with his own hands from the wood of an old oak that had fallen on their property the previous spring. "So, our child will always have roots in this land," he explained as he showed Melody the finished piece, its surface sanded to satiny smoothness and carved with delicate leaves along the edges. The baby, however, had plans of its own. 2 weeks before her due date, Melody woke in the middle of the night to a sharp pain and the alarming sensation of wetness soaking the bed. "Gabriel," she gasped, clutching his arm. "The baby, it's coming." He was instantly alert, years of responding to ranch emergencies serving him well in this most important crisis. "I'll send for the doctor," he said, pulling on his clothes. "And Elizabeth, she arrived in town yesterday." "There may not be time," Melody said, as another contraction gripped her. "This is happening fast." Gabriel's face paled, but his voice remained steady. "Then we'll manage until help arrives. I've delivered dozens of calves. How different can it be?" Despite the circumstances, Melody laughed. "Very different, I imagine, but I trust you." He kissed her forehead before hurrying to wake the ranch hands and send riders for both the doctor and Elizabeth. By the time he returned to their bedroom with hot water, clean linens, and a determined expression, Melody's contractions were coming regularly and with increasing intensity. "Talk to me," she pleaded as he helped her change into a clean nightgown. "Distract me." "Remember our first ride together?" Gabriel began, supporting her as another pain came. "When I took you to the plateau overlooking the valley, I knew that day that I wanted to marry you." "So soon?" Melody gasped when the contraction passed. "When you know, you know." He smiled, wiping her brow with a cool cloth. "I saw the way you looked at the land with the same love I feel for it, and I thought, this woman belongs here, with me, building something that will last." The labor progressed rapidly, each contraction bringing their child closer to the world. Gabriel remained steady throughout, his strength never faltering even when Melody cried out in pain. Just as dawn was breaking over the eastern hills, Elizabeth arrived, breathless and determined, taking charge of the situation with practiced efficiency. "You're doing wonderfully," she assured Melody after examining her. "The baby is positioned perfectly. It won't be long now." An hour later, as the first golden rays of sunlight streamed through the bedroom windows, Melody gave a final, powerful push, and their daughter entered the world with a lusty cry that brought tears to Gabriel's eyes. "A girl," Elizabeth announced, quickly wrapping the infant in a soft blanket. "A beautiful, healthy girl." She placed the tiny bundle in Melody's arms, and the new parents gazed in wonder at their creation, a perfect blend of them both, with Gabriel's dark hair and Melody's delicate features. "Hello, little one," Melody whispered, her exhaustion forgotten in the rush of love that overwhelmed her. "We've been waiting for you." Gabriel sat beside them on the bed, one arm around Melody's shoulders and the other hand gently touching his daughter's cheek. "She's perfect," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Just like her mother." Doc Wilson arrived an hour later, pronouncing both mother and child in excellent health, despite the precipitous delivery. She was determined to make her entrance on her own terms. He chuckled as he packed his bag. "What will you call her?" Gabriel and Melody exchanged a look, having discussed names extensively over the past months. "Hope," they said in unison. "Hope Elizabeth Blackburn." "A fine name," the doctor approved, "for a child born as the sun rose." The news of Hope's birth spread quickly through Silverspring and the surrounding ranches. Visitors came bearing gifts and good wishes, though Gabriel was strict about limiting their time with Melody, insisting she needed rest more than company. In the quiet evenings, as autumn painted the landscape in brilliant hues of red and gold, the new family established their rhythm. Gabriel would sit by the fire, holding Hope against his chest, while Melody rested or wrote letters to her family in Boston, describing the perfect small fingers and toes, the way the baby's eyes were already beginning to track movement, and the overwhelming joy that filled their home. "I never imagined life could be this complete," Gabriel said one night as they watched their daughter sleep in her cradle. "You've given me everything I never knew I wanted." "We gave it to each other," Melody corrected gently, leaning into his embrace. "From the moment you caught me when I fell." As winter settled over the Double Arrow, bringing short days and long, cozy nights, the Blackburn family grew stronger in their love for one another. Hope thrived, her personality emerging stubborn like her father, curious like her mother, and completely adored by both. When the first snow blanketed the ranch in pristine white, Gabriel bundled Melody and Hope in warm clothes and took them on a sleigh ride across their property. The crisp air and bright sunshine created a magical landscape, silent except for the jingle of harness bells and the occasional call of a winter bird. "I want to show you something," Gabriel said, guiding the horses toward a rise overlooking the main house and barns. When they reached the top, he helped Melody from the sleigh, carefully transferring Hope from her arms to the warm nest of blankets they'd prepared. "Look," he said, gesturing to the vista before them. The double arrow spread out below buildings, corrals, and fences, creating the framework of their life together. Smoke rising from the chimney of the home they had made, all surrounded by the untamed beauty of the Colorado wilderness. "This is our legacy," Gabriel continued, his arm around Melody's waist. "Not just the land or the cattle, but what we're building together, a place for Hope to grow, and perhaps for other children to join her someday." Melody leaned into his warmth, her heart full as she looked at their sleeping daughter and the home that had come to mean everything to her. "When I came west, I was looking for adventure," she said softly. "I had no idea I would find my heart's true home instead." Gabriel turned her in his arms, his blue eyes reflecting the winter sky above. "Do you remember what I whispered when I caught you that night at the dance?" "You're mine to hold," Melody quoted, smiling at the memory. "I thought you were being presumptuous." "I was being prescient," he corrected, brushing a snowflake from her cheek. "Because here you are, in my arms, where you belong." "Where we both belong," she amended, rising on tiptoe to kiss him, as the winter sun cast long shadows across the snow-covered land that had brought them together. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. The double arrow prospered under Gabriel's management, expanding to include adjacent properties when neighboring ranchers decided to sell. Melody had given up formal teaching, but continued to educate Hope at home, supplemented by weekly visits to town for social interaction with other children. Hope grew into a spirited child with her father's confidence and her mother's compassion. She followed Gabriel around the ranch whenever permitted, absorbing knowledge about horses and cattle with an eagerness that made him burst with pride. With Melody, she learned reading and arithmetic, history and science, her quick mind grasping concepts well beyond her years. In the spring of Hope's 5th year, Melody gave birth to twins, a boy they named Thomas after Gabriel's father, and a girl they called Grace for the blessing she represented. The household expanded to include a permanent housekeeper, Mrs. Sullivan, whose capable presence allowed Melody to balance motherhood with her continued involvement in ranch operations. Life settled into a pattern of seasonal work, punctuated by family celebrations and community gatherings. The Blackburns hosted an annual harvest festival that became a tradition throughout the county, bringing neighbors together for feasting, dancing, and giving thanks for another year's bounty. On the 10th anniversary of their meeting, Gabriel surprised Melody with a journey to Denver, leaving the children in Mrs. Sullivan's capable hands for a week of theater performances, fine dining, and uninterrupted time together. They stayed in the city's grandest hotel, attended the opera, and shopped for gifts to bring home to the children. "Do you ever miss it?" Gabriel asked as they strolled through a park on their last day, arm in arm like the courting couple they'd once been. "City life, I mean. Culture and convenience and people everywhere you look." Melody considered the question seriously, watching elegantly dressed women pass by with their parasols and calling cards. "Sometimes I miss certain aspects," she admitted. "Books that haven't been read 100 times, conversations about something other than cattle prices or weather patterns." She turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. "But I've never once regretted my choice, Gabriel. Not for a single moment. The life we've built together is richer than anything I could have found in Boston or Denver or any city on earth." His smile was tender as he bent to kiss her, unconcerned with the scandalized looks from passing matrons. "You continue to amaze me, Melody Blackburn. 10 years, and I still find new reasons to love you every day." Their return to the Double Arrow was met with exuberant greetings from the children and a flurry of news about events they'd missed. Hope had helped deliver a foal, the twins had spoken their first full sentences, and a traveling photographer had stopped by, leaving a family portrait as a surprise anniversary gift. That night, after the children were asleep and the house had quieted, Gabriel and Melody sat on the porch swing, enjoying the symphony of night sounds and the canopy of stars overhead. "I've been thinking," Gabriel said, his arm around her shoulders, "about expanding the house. The children are growing, and they'll need their own rooms soon. Perhaps add a proper library for you, with floor-to-ceiling shelves for all those books you keep ordering from back east." "That sounds wonderful," Melody agreed, her head resting against his shoulder. "This house has already grown with our family. Remember how it looked when you first brought me here?" "A bachelor's quarters," Gabriel chuckled. "Functional, but hardly a home." "And now," she prompted, smiling in the darkness, "now it's the heart of everything that matters." His voice grew serious. "Do you know what today is? Besides our anniversary?" Melody thought for a moment. "The spring social in town? We didn't attend this year because of our trip." "Exactly." Gabriel squeezed her shoulders. 10 years ago tonight, a beautiful schoolteacher grew dizzy in my arms, and my life changed forever." "The night you caught me," Melody murmured, the memory still vivid after all these years. "The night I promised you were mine to hold," he corrected, "a promise I've tried to keep every day since." Melody turned in his arms, her face tilted up to his in the soft moonlight. "And have I made it easy or difficult to keep?" Gabriel's laugh was warm as he pulled her closer. "Nothing worth having comes easy, my love, but loving you has been the most natural thing I've ever done." Their kiss was sweet with the familiarity of a decade shared, yet still sparked with the passion that had drawn them together from the beginning. When they parted, Melody traced the lines that time had begun to etch around his eyes, evidence of laughter and squinting into the sun as he worked his land. "Will you catch me if I swoon again?" she teased. "Always," he promised, sealing the vow with another kiss. "For as long as I live, Melody Blackburn, you are mine to hold." As they made their way inside, hand in hand beneath the vast Colorado sky, Melody reflected on the journey that had brought her west. She had come seeking independence, but had found something far more precious, a partnership built on love, respect, and shared dreams. In Gabriel's arms, she had discovered a truth she'd never known before. True freedom came not from standing alone, but from having someone to catch you when you fell. Hope, Thomas, and Grace grew up surrounded by the legacy their parents had built: a thriving ranch, a loving home, and the example of a marriage that only strengthened with time. The Blackburn name became synonymous with integrity throughout the territory, and the Double Arrow expanded to become one of the most prosperous operations in Colorado. Melody never lost her love of learning, establishing a proper school on the ranch that eventually served children from neighboring properties as well. Gabriel's innovative ranching techniques earned recognition from agricultural societies back east, bringing occasional visitors who marveled at what the Blackburns had accomplished so far from civilization. Through droughts and blizzards, economic downturns, and personal losses, their foundation remained unshaken. Each challenge was faced together, each triumph celebrated as a shared victory. And on warm summer evenings, long after the children had grown and begun families of their own, Gabriel and Melody could still be found on their porch swing, hands intertwined, watching the sunset paint the western sky with the promise of another day together. For a woman who had once grown dizzy at a dance, and the cowboy who had caught her with a whispered promise, life had become an enduring waltz, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always in perfect rhythm with one another.